Good evening, everyone. I just want to do a brief recording. I decided I'm going to change up because I looked at the PowerPoints and the PowerPoints are so long and detailed that the video of a slideshow would be too detailed and it'd be hard for me to post it onto Brightspace because it only allows you to post um, so much gigabytes without it having to go through YouTube or another platform. And I was scared it was going to take me too long to go through YouTube, and then we're using the PowerPoints from the book. I was scared it would be a copyright thing and all that stuff. So what I'm doing is I'm posting the PowerPoints, but I'm recording a brief like synopsis of a lecture. Okay, so this first one is going to be on chapter one, and I'm going to um break it down into just basically everything that's in chapter one of our Gladding and Newsome fifth edition textbook. And today we'll explore the history of our profession, the merging of the community and mental health counseling, and the role of professional identity, and the many settings where clinical mental health counselors work. And hopefully by the end of this little lecture, you should understand how our field developed, what sets it apart from other helping professions, and where you might see yourself fitting in as future counselors. Okay. Um, Before we dive into historical dates and organization, let's ask ourselves, why does knowing the history of our profession matters? And if you remember last night, I put on the board Sankofa, and it's about looking back into the past and bringing that to the future and helping us not to get stuck in the past, but to help us use the past to help us develop and grow and be more well-rounded. And simply put, you can fully appreciate the role you're stepping into without knowing how it came to be. The field of clinical mental health counseling didn't exist in its current form 50 years ago. It was shaped by social changes, advocacy efforts, and a need to define our work compared to related professions like psychology, social work, and psychiatry. This history will help us understand our identity, and identity is very important, and because it is identity is at the core of being a professional counselor. The chapter opens with a metaphor. Gladden opens with a metaphor in the chapter, and he talks about a man who sees people floating downstream in distress. So he starts pulling them out of the stream one by one. But after a while, he wonders, where are these people coming from? So he decides to walk upstream. This story symbolized two aspects of counseling: responding to immediate needs, the rescue, the pulling the people out of the water, and preventing future harm, ongoing, the going upstream and helping the people that before they get into trouble. In clinical mental health counseling, we do both. We provide therapy to address current mental health concerns, and we work on a prevention, advocacy, and systemic change to stop problems from developing in the first place. When you look at the roots of the profession, it starts off with community counseling. And if you remember, I told you all when I first started in the master program in Chicago State years ago, it was called community counseling. Well, the concept of community counseling basically emerged in the 1970s. And scholars emphasized that counselors should work not only with individuals, but also with communities. And it was designing services that were preventive, multifaceted, and responsive to cultural and societal needs. Community counselors often work in outreach, crisis intervention, and prevention programs, meeting clients where they are. And that meant in schools, community centers, and neighborhoods, not just in office settings. Later on, like 1980s, the field turned into mental health counseling. And around about the same time, another branch of profession was developing, mental health counseling. The American Mental Health Counseling Association, it was around about 1977, 78. The AMHCA, the American Mental Health Counseling Association, was founded to represent counselors who were working in mental health agencies, hospitals, private practices, and often outside of educational systems. So it became like a little merger between what community counselors were doing and mental health counselors were doing. So the American Mental Health Counseling Association pushed for state licensure, and it established ethical standards and created professional journals to strengthen the field. And by 1988, 1989, something around about that time, the Council for Accreditation of Counseling and Related Educational Programs, CACREP, formally recognized mental health counseling as a counseling specialty. In 2009, CACREP merged community counseling and mental health counseling into one specialty, clinical mental health counseling. This merger was strategic. It created a unified identity, standardized training requirements, and strengthened our profession's visibility and credibility. The merged identity emphasized wellness, prevention, and systemic advocacy while still preparing counselors for clinical work in diverse settings. So the training and accreditation part goes into how today the CACREP curriculum for clinical mental health programs include 9 key core areas. And those key core areas are professional orientation and ethics, human growth and development, counseling theory and skills, group counseling, assessment and testing, career counseling, research and program evaluation, psychopathology and diagnosis, and practical internship experiences under supervision. And these standards ensure that whether you're here in Illinois, whether you're in Ohio, whether you're in Texas or New York, you're receiving a consistent, high quality preparation that allows you to serve a wide range of clients. Excuse me. What makes counseling a profession? A profession has specialized training, ethical codes, credentialing, and continuing education requirements. As clinical mental health counselors, your identity will be shaped by your training, your commitment to ethics, and your license. Credentialing has 3 levels. The first one is registration and inspection, and it's being listed as a provider who meets basic qualifications. 2, certification, recognition that you meet specific professional standards. And 3, licensure, legal permission to practice independently in your state. Most states license for clinical mental health counselors are either LPC, LCPC, LPCC, or LMHC. Okay. The basic distinction from other related professions, as clinical mental health counselors, our focus is on wellness, prevention, and therapy. Okay. A psychiatrist, their focus is more on medical treatment and medication. And social workers, their focus is on systems and case management and therapy. While psychologists Their focus is on testing, research, and therapy. Psychiatric nursing, their focus is on nursing care and mental health. There's different levels of training for each of the professions as well. With clinical mental health counselors, the terminal degree is a master's. You don't have to get a doctorate. Okay. And where clinical mental health counselors usually work are like agencies, private practices, or in the community. While psychiatrists, their training is MD, a medical doctor, and they usually work in hospitals and clinics. While social workers, their training is a master's of MSW, a master social work, and they usually work in agencies or hospitals or even private practice. A psychologist is training as a PhD or a PsyD, and they usually work in clinics and academia. And psychiatric nursing are at least a bachelor level nursing, a BSN with an RN, a registered nurse, and mental health training. And they usually primarily work in hospitals. For clinical mental health, and this is something that, as we further down the course, that you'll be able to look into on where you would prefer to work. The main settings for clinical mental health counselors are community mental health agencies, hospitals and clinics, private practices, VA facilities, substance use treatment centers, domestic violence shelters, hospice care, schools and universities, and nonprofits. In those settings, we usually provide direct client services, where it's a therapy, assessment, and crisis intervention. Indirect services, where it's case management, consultation and referrals. Direct community service like outreach programs, psychoeducation. Indirect community service, policy advocacy, coalition building. So to recap briefly, what I would hope you would get from this is clinical mental health counseling has roots in both community counseling and mental health counseling. The 2009 K-CREP merger created a unified specialty with standardized testing. Professional identity is grounded in ethics, credentialing, and advocacy. Clinical mental health counselors work in diverse settings, serving individuals and communities while addressing both prevention and intervention. And your journey through this program will prepare you not just to help individuals, but to be a change agent for communities as well. So, as you reflect on this lecture, something I want you to consider is, and we'll probably discuss this more when we come back to class on September 8th, is which historical development stood out most to you and why? What might your professional identity involve during this program? Which setting do you imagine yourself working in 5 years from now? So I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to this mini brief lecture. And like I said, we will separate the PowerPoints from the lecture. I want to make sure I do this because I did promise that. But when I looked at the PowerPoints and saw how many it was, I was like, that'll take too long. But hopefully soon we'll be able to get the projector working in class. All right. So let me know what you think, and I will see you all on September 8th.